What if there was a podcast that could answer your questions in relation to data and digitalization of the energy sector, a source of information featuring guests from energy utilities, associations, solution providers, and the academia? What if this podcast is already here? It's called Datatopia and will complement Enlit Europe's data series with a focus on topics like ownership, policy, security, new technologies, ethics, and digitalization. If you're interested in these topics, then you're in the right place. Stay tuned.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new Datatopia podcast. My name is Areti Daradimu, and I'll be your host. I'm pleased to introduce today's guest, Mr. Rémi Demerlé, Marketing Director of Semtech, and the person that is responsible for the vertical marketing group about smart utilities, the leading vertical market of LoRa Alliance. LoRa Alliance is the fastest growing technology alliance, a non-profit association of more than 500 member companies committed to enabling large-scale deployment of low-power wide area networks, IoT, through the development and promotion of the LoRaWAN open standard. Rémi, thank you for joining me in this Datatopia podcast episode on interoperability and the LoRa Alliance's take on things. My first question to you: in what ways can IoT improve our home life or our industrial performance?
Thank you, Areti, for this invitation. On behalf of the LoRa Alliance, working for the vertical market of smart utilities, we can give several examples and the fundamental reasons why LoRaWAN is a good technology that can help for both the end user in home life, as well for the utilities in the production, as well in the distribution of services. But overall, we are facing with that revolution of IoT that has started a decade ago, and it's accelerated by the disruption of new low-power wide area network technologies, such as LoRaWAN. LoRaWAN, the protocol that the LoRa Alliance is specifying, maintaining, and for that, delivering a unique certification. So since the creation of the LoRa Alliance 5 years ago, we have seen a tipping point with more and more numerous applications. As you said, it's a very fast-growing ecosystem. How can we explain this? Utilities are specifying in their tenders technologies, including LoRaWAN, but it's combining with other segments such as smart cities. We have examples of tenders combining smart water with smart parking, street lighting in India as well in US, etc. We see a good value of LoRaWAN for the utilities in that achievement to have one network technology that is open, that can be, I would say, operated by different model of network, public, private, hybrid, also combining both, or it can be also supported with community. To give you an example of this very exciting value, Meshed, an Australian operator of LoRaWAN in Australia, is proposing successfully to Sydney Water, Shoalhaven Water, some water utility, very large, and also playing in councils, a solution where they can, in same time, have LoRaWAN application for the management of water assets, such as management of a reservoir, controlling smart valves, managing sewer pumps, and water treatment plants. And in parallel, same network protocol can be used by council for citizens as well for enterprises. And that's for smart parking again, or smart bin sensing, people counting, and many more applications. So open specification and the ease of scalability are very good value that are changing the game. We also see other, I would say, similar good deployment by Tata Communication, Senra. There are two big Indian operators of LoRaWAN, and they provide connectivity for smart cities, as well in parallel for smart gas or smart water. Another example is in US, Senet with Metasys. They're combining together efforts where the utility can have connectivity for connecting smart water meters of Neptune or Mueller, and in parallel to have also multiple applications like smart parking again. That's a very typical of deployment in different areas. Another example in Europe, RBWise, a network provider, is today operating network for the combo utility of gas and electricity of Geneva in Switzerland. Just to say how much it's a disruption and a revolution. In this case, the utility SIG was willing to phase out, to change from the phase out of the 2G network in Switzerland. They have also some couple of issues with batteries running out of power in smart gas meters connected with cellular 2G. And what happened? SIG opted for deployment with LoRaWAN in this area. And today, this I would say network is not only used for the smart metering purpose, but also for connecting smart buildings, and to also propose to the city of Geneva. It's a project called Smart Geneva to propose application of, again, parking management, green space monitoring, and also an interesting one, noise monitoring. RBWise developed a noise sensor for that. So that's, I would say, other examples where we see home life is changing. Another thing that is very close to the end user and that helps to understand IoT can provide to the utility a chance to expand with new services. Robo, for example, has a solution for water flow measurement and water leak detection. Ediome in US has also a solution that is very competitive for smart restaurants, hotels, enterprises, as well as smart home. And with that, it's not only the smart meter that is, I would say, is a typical end node deployed by utility, it's also solution directly at home that can help to improve efficiency and by fact, reducing risks of water leaks and waste. For enterprises, it can be from 10 to 25% of a water or similarly energy bill reduction. So it's a huge interest of the end user to benefit from the connectivity managed, for example, for metering, and also for, I would say, creating here more savings.
Yes, Rémi, you're absolutely right. And the consumer is getting more and more in the center of attention for utilities and the other energy companies. However, one of the things that most end consumers think about is security and how safe their data would be. Because with the help of artificial intelligence and smart machines that you already mentioned, like smart meters, thermostats, etc., we can monitor and control a consumer's data. How secure are they?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see that the penetration of the IoT depends on, for example, protection. So there is both security and safety. I will help to explain how the LoRaWAN is secured. Just to insist again on the, I would say, the safety. For example, gas leak detection is becoming something very critical for deployment and maintenance of gas infrastructure and also gas pipe monitoring. And we see that coming more and more as a clear value for adoption of globally the IoT. And LoRaWAN has many solutions that can be available for that. Today to also go further into the question of how data are secured. When you, I would say, collect a reading of a smart meter or temperature, etc., for thermostat control, you could believe this in data has less significance, but on a large scale, and of course for the billing purpose, when I would say it's a responsibility for the utility, data must be very well secured. And this must be an end-to-end solution. So LoRaWAN has been designed for, I would say, a couple of key criteria. Large scale deployment, low power consumption, because most of the IoT devices are battery powered, and I would say very affordable cost for scalable deployment. Solution must also be for 10 to 20 years. We have water meters, typically in US, the requirement is 20 years. So security must be future-proof and ready for large-scale deployment, and also adapted to the constraints of the low-power wide area network. The end-to-end security that is proposed by LoRaWAN is built on standard and well-recognized algorithm. The cryptographic algorithm is IAS1, which is already applied by many, I would say, utilities and different networks. NIST in US has approved it. It's one of the best practice for constraint node and networks. The other benefits of the solution proposed genuinely by default with LoRaWAN is a mutual authentication between end device and the LoRaWAN network. There is only one key that is generated and programmed in the device, and that is used to derive network session key and application session key. Those two keys are separated, and one is managed by the operator for mutual authentication, and the other one, the application session key, is used for, I would say, protecting, encrypting the payload. Then integrity and non-replay are ensured. This means confidentiality of all the LoRaWAN traffic that is, I would say, transported by network operator, but cannot be decoded in terms of payload content. With LoRaWAN, solution vendor can comply with the important requirement of security. To also explain a bit further, comparison with cellular network, traffic is encrypted over the air interface, right? But it is transported as plain text in the operator's core network. Consequently, the end users are burdened by selecting, deploying, or managing additional security layer. Typically, they create, install VPN over the cellular network, or they have to, I would say, use a proprietary solution. And this approach is not suited in LPWAN technologies because the cost of adding another layer of security will require considerable additional power consumption. It will also result in more complexity of management and consequently more cost. So in comparison with cellular, LoRaWAN has embedded end-to-end security solution. It's based on standard. It's also very easy to deploy on large scale.
Okay. Rémi, I want to ask you something. We're having an interoperability webinar next week on the 31st. And well, I wanted to ask you, what is, sorry, the need of industry certification programs for ensuring interoperability between devices and applications, and what would you propose and why?
I mean, the question of interoperability is a must to have for utilities. They usually want to reduce integration costs as well, reducing risks and be, I would say, less dependent from vendor solutions. So interoperability is usually on 3 levels: is the application, the network, and the device. The question you ask is between application and device.
Yeah.
And LoRa Alliance is proposing one open protocol specification and is proposing one unique certification of the device. That results in saying any LoRaWAN certified device can work on any LoRaWAN network. That means interoperability is ensured by LoRa Alliance and by all the members of the ecosystem that are supporting this interoperability between network and device. Now, regarding the question about how an application and device can be easily interoperable and secured over the long term. The effort of LoRa Alliance is today to work closer and closer with association and standard application. An example of that is the DLMS, that is one of the most established standard protocol for metering application. DLMS is IEC standard. And we have a liaison with DLMS Association since 2 years, and we are releasing a new profile of DLMS over LoRaWAN that is standard. That means, in result, certification by the DLMS Association on one hand, and certification by LoRa Alliance will secure utilities that they can scale, that can have a very long-term solutions, and less, I would say, dependencies on proprietary things compared to other choices. So what I want also to say is the interoperability is also important for the radio regulators. Today, we have a regulatory board at the LoRa Alliance, and we have released a certification program for the radio bands in Europe, in North America, in Asia, Korea, India, etc. And we keep on, I would say, working a lot on a program that secure LoRaWAN can be used in most of the regions where the ISM band is allowed, and also to have a certification that remains unique across the regions. We have also delivered a LoRaWAN certification test tool that helps all device manufacturers, member of LoRa Alliance, to pre-test devices. Then they can eliminate all the possible faults and secure that in 1 or 2 weeks max, the device can be certified.
And talking about this new profile of DLMS over LoRaWAN, what applications and markets will benefit from it?
It's a very, I would say, important, I would say, thing. We had a webinar last June 2nd about this announcement and what will be the applications. DLMS is, as I said, very well established for smart electricity metering, but it's also recognized for gas and water metering, and that brings benefit of using the same architecture with application and with network technology for combo utilities that have electricity and gas, for example. That's the case of many utilities across the world. So they can mutualize and save more costs in terms of infrastructure and choice of technologies. The other thing is DLMS is expanding or creating chance for upselling by, I would say, creating future classes of devices for energy health and usage monitoring. like for example, for management of grid infrastructure, line fault detectors, or any assets that are in power substation, switch gear, transformers, plus also all the sensors that are useful to monitor the environment. Typically, DLMS has also been recently approved by another work group of the IEC for the control and surveillance of automation.
Mm-hmm.
That means DLMS will not replace the SCADA system, but will help to secure the environment, typically all the parameters such as temperature, water flow level to detect possible risks, also smoke detectors, intrusion, etc.
Mm-hmm.
will help to secure those remote assets. The other, I would say, axis of development is to expand in a smart home appliance, such as private EV charging, but also all the home appliance that will benefit here from DLMS to interact better with the energy utility. And that could serve the interest of demand and response, as well to integrate the renewable energy in a faster and better way.
I see. Talking about, you mentioned surveillance, and monitoring, and that gets me a little bit back on the data front. How far should we go in order to protect our data?
I would say the question is very at the core of the utility. To ensure confidence in metering, for example, meter as are certified, plus also network technology must be secure proof. But there are things to be considered about, for example, having interest of anonymizing data to control that the water resource is well protected and not, I would say, overconsumed. There is also some need to secure on pipelines. Remote areas can be difficult to monitor, but IoT gives a chance to improve the safety of this. So when we say we have needed to protect data, we have also needed to enable ways to offer a global overview of consumption for example, resource protection, as well to have environmental understanding. For example, it could be the interest of people to have an index of air quality, and air quality requires multiple measurements. Noise monitoring in the city of Geneva, for example, has a direct value for the citizens and to understand better where and how much are the air pollution levels. So in some extent, the IoT is I would say, a very good tool to secure meter readings, but also can be a very good solution to offer a global map of environmental situation and condition. Just think about adding temperature sensor and some air quality sensor to all meters.
Yes.
Or to all, I would say, street lighting, for example, lamps. That will give you directly a map of the air quality, noise level quality in cities.
Yes, that makes total sense, and it makes me also think a little bit of the digitizing of the energy sector, because that will play an important role on controlling, monitoring, privacy, etc. So I would like to ask you as my last question. It will be sort of a combo question to you. What would be the first thing that an energy company should do in order to adapt to the new energy dynamics? And here I mean the digitizing of the energy sector and the new realities like the pandemic, as far as those are concerned. And in their attempt to do that, how threatened are they going to be, you think, from the new, from the tech giants of the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, Google, etc.? I would like to ask you for a short as possible answer, because we're running out of time a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, for the utilities, there is today an urgency to understand that the pandemic creates more and more needs for remote solution. So instead of sending people for eyeball reading of basic meters, the adoption of smart metering will, of course, reduce that risk for the workforce. So there is more and more need also for workforce management to secure and to locate where they are acting. There is also a need for I would say reducing the dependency on I would say the energy. The European Union, for example, has a clean energy package program that is calling for adoption of more digital solutions. An example are heat meters that are today available with LoRaWAN, like Semtech, for example, or Landis+Gyr, and that I would say an evolution that clearly say we have to reduce energy dependency, and we have to have better solutions for controlling it. In that situation, the GAFAM, Amazon, Microsoft, Google that you mentioned, are seeing the opportunity to introduce solutions for smart home that could participate in this, I would say, change of habits. We have already different solutions that are based on cloud. Selucid, for example, with their MIDA meter in Germany to monitor energy consumption, and similarly Lemonbit. They are today proposing their solution. Those could be, I would say, reused and shared with, I would say, giants for large scale to offer better control of energy usage. That's, I would say, where energy usage monitoring plus safety at home are clear values that could profit to giants to offer more cloud services in combination with the utilities.
Perfect. So if I understood correctly, no one is threatened and everybody can cooperate to take, let's say, our energy sector a step further. That's a very positive, let's say, takeaway from this conversation. Rémi, I would like to thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights with us. Thank you for joining us today. And,
it's a pleasure.
Thank you for that. I'd like to remind you all that the recording of this episode of the Datatopia podcast and the future episodes will be available on demand on the Enlit Europe website. Join us soon for another Datatopia podcast episode, as well as for the first Data Hub series episode on interoperability on the 31st of August. Thank you for joining, and until next time, stay safe and have fun.